Just because a star player is on your favorite team right now doesn't mean they're going to stay there.
Breaking news in the CBS Sports HQ, Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade.
Each club has at least one notable player who bears watching leading up to the trade deadline. With that said, let's dive into every NFL team's best player most likely to be dealt during the 2023 season. And a big shout out to Nick Carlin26 for suggesting this video. Arizona Cardinals, Zach Ertz. The Cardinals will likely be one of, if not the worst NFL team here in 2023. It doesn't make sense to keep an injury-prone and fading tight end on the wrong side at 30. Ertz may be past his prime, but several playoff contenders might be willing to take a chance on the Super Bowl 52 champion with the hope that he'll be able to rekindle some of that magic come January. Atlanta Falcons, CORDARRELLE Patterson. If the Falcons are out of playoff contention leading up to the deadline, they expect them to deal the do-it-all Patterson in his contract year. Patterson should appeal to any team looking for help in the running game and special teams department, and he'd probably be available at a bargain price. Baltimore Ravens, Patrick Queen. The 2020 first-round pick still hasn't put it fully together, and with the Ravens extending Roquan Smith before using a third-round pick on Trenton Simpson, it's clear that it's now or never for Queen in Baltimore. If Simpson outplays Queen leading up to the deadline, the Ravens should cut bait and trade the latter. The linebacker core will do just fine without Queen. Buffalo Bills, Gabe Davis. Davis didn't have the breakout year that Bills fans and fantasy owners expected in 2022. Buffalo used its first-rounder on tight end Dalton Kincaid, giving Josh Allen another weapon he needs to complement Stephon Diggs. If Kincaid comes as advertised, well, that can make Davis expendable. Carolina Panthers, Brian Burns. Last season, it was reported that Carolina rejected an offer of 2 first-round picks for Burns. Clearly, at the time, they obviously felt pretty good about their chances of locking him down to a long-term extension. But Burns still hasn't signed a new deal as the regular season draws closer. If the Panthers also aren't in playoff contention leading up to the deadline, they may as well trade Burns and get that first-round pick. And who knows, maybe potentially even more. The Chicago Bears, Chase Claypool. The Bears must be feeling buyer's remorse by giving up what ended up being the number 32 pick to the Steelers for Claypool at last year's deadline. At any rate, there's no undoing the past. The Bears need a good year from Claypool, otherwise the Canadian kid will likely find himself trying to revive his career elsewhere. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon. Many expected the Bengals to cut Mixon in a cap-saving move, but they brought the 27-year-old back for another year. Let's just say it wouldn't be a shock if rookie Chase Brown took over for Mixon as the RB1. And if it came to that, well, the Bengals could look to deal their former Pro Bowler to an RB-needy team for a late-round pick. Cleveland Browns, Zadarius Smith. Yes, the Browns just acquired Smith in a blockbuster deal with Minnesota. But what if Cleveland is A, not in the playoff picture, and B, gets an offer that they simply cannot refuse? If the Browns are in postseason contention, then Smith isn't going anywhere. But otherwise, well, they might have a tough time turning down a good offer for a consistent double-digit sack threat. So don't be surprised if he's on the move yet again before the deadline arrives. Dallas Cowboys, Michael Gallup. The trade for veteran Brandon Cooks makes Gallup pretty expendable here. The latter just hasn't been able to stay healthy and build off his career year in 2019. With Cooks and CeeDee Lamb leading the Cowboys receiving core, Gallup might struggle to generate enough targets. And if a Super Bowl contender decides that they want a big-bodied receiver to complement their number 1 receiver, Dallas could look to ship out Gallup and clear his salary off their books. Denver Broncos, Jerry Jeudy. The Broncos will keep Jeudy and Courtland Sutton together for at least the start of the year with the hope that they'll help Russell Wilson regain his star-like form. If that doesn't happen, then GM George Payton will be entering seller mode once again. And seller mode could mean dealing away his top receiver. As good as Jeudy is, Denver could definitely fetch a first or second round pick for him. Detroit Lions, CJ Gardner-Johnson. The Lions somehow got the Swiss Army knife safety on a cheap 1-year deal in free agency. Of course, Gardner-Johnson sent in Motor City could be short and not so sweet if the Lions aren't playing up to expectations in the first half. If that is the case, Brad Holmes will have no problem garnering interest for CJGJ. A return to the Eagles or even the Saints would make sense. But really, any Super Bowl contender should have an interest if Detroit puts him up on the block. Green Bay Packers, Rashawn Gary. The best possible outcome is a long-term extension for Gary, who has emerged as a star on that Packers defense. If the two sides can't reach a deal, Green Bay could always place the franchise tag on him next offseason. But it might also be hard for the front office to turn down a good package for Gary at the deadline. Houston Texans, Shaq Mason. Houston may have given Mason a 3-year deal after acquiring from Tampa Bay, but that doesn't mean he'll definitely stay long term. Never underestimate the power of a desperate GM. Teams are always looking to beef up their pass protection for their star QBs during trade season. If a team endures shakiness in the trenches, Houston could garner a ton of offers for Mason. Indianapolis Colts, Jonathan Taylor. Taylor requested a trade in July following a meeting with Jim Irsay. Not sure if the Colts would want to trade Taylor before week 1 though. They might be better off showcasing him again for a month or so before fielding offers. If Taylor stays healthy and gets back to his 2021 form, the Colts would be looking at a very shiny return for their star weapon. Jacksonville Jaguars, Zay Jones. Jones had a career year in Duval County last season, finishing with 82 catches for 823 yards and 5 touchdowns. But the arrival of Calvin Ridley means less targets for Jones. So expect Ridley and Christian Kirk to be the go-to guys here for Trevor Lawrence. Kansas City Chiefs, Jerick McKinnon. A team in win-now mode, like the defending champs, won't be trading any of their starters during the season. Pure and simple. Isaiah Pacheco is the lead running back entering 2023, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire right behind him. If injuries mount in the backfield for another team, well, they could give KC a call and pick up a serviceable veteran like McKinnon for a late-round pick. Las Vegas Raiders, Josh Jacobs. Unless the Raiders are a playoff team, and they likely won't be, they're gonna be better off trading Jacobs as opposed to losing him for nothing next year. The 2022 rushing champion could be the final piece needed for several contenders to round out their offense. Quite frankly, which bona fide Super Bowl favorites wouldn't want Jacobs? Trading him during the season makes all too much sense, now that we know that the Raiders aren't keen on committing to him long term. Los Angeles Chargers, Keenan Allen. Many wondered if the Bolts would cut or trade the oft-injured Allen, but he agreed to a restructured deal that opened up cap space. But Mike Williams has taken over as the Bolts' new WR1. Plus, they used a first-round pick on TCU product Quentin Johnston. If Allen isn't playing up to his usual standards, the Chargers could look to unload him and build around a receiving core of Williams and Johnston. Los Angeles Rams, Cam Akers. Hard to see the Rams competing with a top-heavy roster that lacks sufficient depth. But you know, running back Cam Akers is very much on trade watch. Akers is the Rams' RB1. When healthy, he's elusive and explosive and can lift the offense at any given point. Dealing Akers for a late-round pick, of course provided they're out of the postseason race, feels like a very likely outcome here. Miami Dolphins, Cedrick Wilson Jr. With Miami likely to contend for a playoff berth, there is no reason to think they'll trade any of their key starters. But ex-Cowboy Cedrick Wilson Jr. could be available if he underperforms the way he did in 2022, following a career 2021 campaign in Dallas. Minnesota Vikings, Danielle Hunter. Hunter briefly popped up in trade rumors before the Vikings agreed to give him a pay raise. That soothes things over for now, but it doesn't mean that the relationship is fully repaired. Many traded away disgruntled sack specialist Darius Smith, so what's keeping them from dealing Hunter during the season? Especially if they find themselves out of the playoff picture. New England Patriots, Mike Onwenu. Even when his Pats are in title contention, Bill Belichick often likes to trade a player for draft compensation rather than lose them for nothing. So don't be shocked if Onwenu is on the move come trade deadline season, regardless of New England's record. Onwenu's been a rock on the Patriots O-line, but they're unlikely to extend him in his contract year. New Orleans Saints, Michael Thomas. After adding Offensive Rookie of the Year finalist Chris Olave and a plethora of hidden gem talents such as Rashid Shaheed, James Washington, and the team's 6th-round pick in 2023, A.T. Perry, New Orleans no longer has to rely on Thomas to be the player he was in 2019 and before. With the Saints no longer needing Thomas as a cornerstone of the offense, creating a cap hit of $25 million over the next 2 seasons seems like a heavy price to pay for a WR2. New York Giants, Saquon Barkley. Full stop, Barkley only hits the trade block if the Giants are out of playoff contention. Big Blue doesn't exactly seem keen on the idea of extending Barkley long-term, so if they fail to build off their magic from last year, GM Joe Shane may feel pressured to deal his star running back for valuable draft compensation. You know, instead of watching Barkley walk away for nothing as a free agent. New York Jets, Carl Lawson. Lawson is entering the final season of a 3-year, $45 million deal that he signed with the Jets in 2021. After missing the entire 21 campaign to injury, Lawson returned to form and posted 7 sacks. But did the Jets really need Lawson? They used 2022 and 2023 first-rounders on edge rushers Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald respectively. If Robert Saleh and company decide to give the kids ample playing time, well, it's going to make Lawson expendable. Philadelphia Eagles, Quez Watkins. With Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert rounding out a scary good receiving core, Watkins shouldn't expect a whole lot of targets, and that could ultimately culminate in a trade request. He showed promise in 2021 with 647 receiving yards though, so another team out there could be interested in giving Watkins an expanded role. Pittsburgh Steelers, Allen Robinson. Pittsburgh took a flyer on A-Rob following a disappointing one-year stint with the Rams. We're skeptical that it'll do much with George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, and Pat Freiermuth rounding out a deep set of weapons to begin with. So does that mean Robinson gets traded for the second time in 1 year? Well, don't bet against it. San Francisco 49ers, Trey Lance. If Brock Purdy stays healthy and builds off his incredible underdog story from 2022, then Lance is a safe bet to get traded. If another club loses its starting QB for the year to injury, well, they could be enticed to place a call for Lance. Seattle Seahawks, Jamal Adams. The Adams trade hasn't gone exactly as hoped for Seattle. And the thing is, they don't really need him with stars like Tariq Woolen, Quandre Diggs, and promising rookie Devin Witherspoon headlining the secondary. Look, Adams couldn't wait to leave the Jets, so he might be dying to leave Seattle, especially if his role and playing time are reduced in 2023. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans. With Tom Brady gone, the Bucs are looking at a long-term rebuild. They could extend franchise icon Mike Evans, but we'd argue that they're better off trading a 30-year-old in his contract year. Evans would land Tampa at least a third-round pick, maybe even more, maybe even a first if he agreed to an extension with his new team. Plus, he'd fit in just about anywhere. We would love to see him in Buffalo or Kansas City especially, though. Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry. The two-time rushing champion is entering the final year of his contract. Tennessee should be hesitant to extend Henry long-term since, he'll be 30 in January. If the Titans return to contention, then you know what? He's gonna stay. If they're out of the playoff race, well, he could be the most sought-after guy on the market, meaning that the Titans will most definitely trade him. It all depends on where they are standings-wise. Washington Commanders, Chase Young. The Commanders stunned many by declining the fifth-year option on Young's rookie deal. So if he doesn't stay healthy and regain his star-like form that we saw in 2020, well, you can bet Washington will look to trade him. But who do you think will be the biggest NFL player traded during the 2023 season? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.